Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
It is time to talk some more baseball here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley. It is currently September 1st. Yes, we made it to September as we are recording this, and that makes for some exciting times as baseball is coming down to the wire as we're past that halfway mark. Just a lot of excitement in the game. I know that I came across a tweet on the Twitter page and seeing how tight the National League is and how wide open it is. I mean, the NL Central, when it comes to that second place spot, the Brewers are only one game back, Reds 2.5. NL East, Phillies and Marlins are tied, Mets 2.5 back, Nationals 4 back. In NL West, the Rockies 4 back, Giants 4.5, Diamondbacks 7. But still, a lot of possibility for a lot of these teams to just try to make the playoffs, make a push, and good thing the trade deadline happened because a lot of these teams are trying to get in there for sure. So we have a lot of things to talk about considering the trade deadline just passing. We're going to start things off with news and noise like always, talk about some trade winners, some trade losers in the season, and we want to take another look at playoffs of what they would be as of today. We talked about this last week. It was a very exciting thing to look into. And the fun thing about it is, as a week passes, we look at it again, and there was so much movement and so much change. So I want to take a chance to look at that. And I talk about some potential other baseball matchups that we could see in the postseason. But starting things off with news and noise, getting you caught up on all 30 teams around the league in baseball. Well, we're going to start off with some injury news, and with one of our biggest stars in baseball, we have Ronald Acuna Jr. for the Braves. He had to leave Atlanta's game against the Phillies at Citizens Bank Park on Sunday night in the second inning due to some right hamstring tightness. He had just gotten back. We had just gotten him to return to the lineup Wednesday from an injured list stint because of an inflamed left wrist that had sidelined him since August 11th. The star outfielder was also starting to turn things around a little bit as he was hitting .266 with 5 home runs in 95 plate appearances this season. So you hope for a quick return for him, especially at an NL East where the Braves are holding on atop. The Phillies are coming, it feels like, and you know that they're going to want to be full strength, that Atlanta Braves team. For the Chicago Cubs, Tyler Chatwood had an MRI on his right elbow, and it revealed a flexor pronator strain. Cubs general manager Jed Hoyer announced Monday there is no timetable for Chatwood's return as of right now, and he will be placed on the 10-day IL prior to Tuesday's game against the Pirates. Chatwood, who is making his second start since an IL stint due to a mid-back strain, exited in the Cubs' 10-1 victory over the Reds. In the third inning, due to some right elbow discomfort, he immediately summoned to the dugout after spiking a pitch, and he came out of the game afterwards. You can just tell that he was frustrated, having some issues. For the New York Mets, Dylan Betances and Steven Matz were both placed on the 10-day IL list Sunday. While the Matz move was unsurprising after some reports of having a shoulder issue Saturday, the club revealed Sunday that Betances had been dealing with a lat issue prior to his wild pitch resulting in a walk-off loss to the Yankees on Saturday. Steven Matz had pitched a perfect fifth inning in that game, but afterwards, manager Luis Rojas said the left-hander might be headed to the injured list with some left shoulder discomfort he felt earlier in the week. Prior to his hiatus, he was, created from COVID-19 last week. The Mets were planning on moving Matz to the bullpen because of his early season struggles in the rotation, but instead he's going to be making a move to the IL along with Betances. Big hits for the Mets as they were fighting in that NL East as well, so they're going to need some pitching help going forward. For the Chicago White Sox, they placed Gio Gonzalez on the 10-day IL list. Retroactive to August 27th with a right groin strain he sustained while warming up in the bullpen during Friday's game against the Royals. Yoan Moncada also missed his second straight game Monday with some soreness in his hamstring on his left leg. General Manager Rick Hahn and manager Rick Renteria said that Moncada showed improvement Sunday. He had some treatment, so they were seeing some positive signs moving forward. And the hope is that he will return in the next few days. So hopefully not a very long injury stint for Moncada, as the White Sox are trying to make the push to win that American League Central, as they've been one of the hotter teams in baseball. The Yankees have a ton of injury news. After hitting a game-tying homer in Game 1 of the Yankees doubleheader against the Mets on Sunday, Aaron Hicks had to exit Game 2 in the fifth inning with cramping in both of his calves. Both Hicks and manager Aaron Boone said after the game that they don't think the issue is going to be significant, so hopefully he should be back shortly. Giancarlo Stanton, who was placed on the 10-day IL list on August 9th with a left hamstring strain, continues to progress towards a return to the lineup. Timetable given for his injury was 3 to 4 weeks, and Sunday actually marked exactly 3 weeks, so we're going to probably be hearing more news about Stanton in the coming days. He's still not all the way there, Boone said, but he's doing well with the progressions and stuff. He's not all the way out of the woods yet as far as the injury, but he is running at about 75 to 80%. Hitting and doing that stuff is not a problem. We just want to make sure we get to the finish line with the injury. So I also wonder if potentially we'd see something like a pinch hit at bat or something, and maybe trying to ease him into the game. We'll see with the Yankees moving forward. The Yankees may also not have Aaron Judge in the lineup again until the final week of the regular season. Judge had sustained a re-injury to his soleus muscle of the right calf on Wednesday at Atlanta and had been told to expect his rehab to take twice as long as the first stint, which costs the outfielder approximately 2 weeks, so that could be some extended time. Zach Britton is looking to be nearing his return. Left-hander tossed 21 pitches in a bullpen session on Friday, reported no issues. He's performed fielding drills, covering first base. He was scheduled to throw from a mound again on Sunday, after which could be activated from the IL. And then Gleyber Torres had some issues with the left hamstring and left quadriceps strains, took ground balls and hit indoors on Saturday. Aaron Boone said that Torres is doing really well, probably better than I would have anticipated, but there is no set date for his return as of right now. For the Los Angeles Angels, almost said Anaheim Angels there, David Fletcher came out of Sunday's game against the Mariners at Angel Stadium in the fifth inning after twisting his left ankle trying to beat out a play at first base. Fletcher was quoted later saying, "I hit the base with my right foot, then my left foot after the base. I think I was trying to get away from the pitcher, kind of peeling off to the right a little bit." Manager Joe Madden said Fletcher is day-to-day at the moment, and he hopes that he's going to return to the lineup Wednesday after the Angels game Monday and a day off Tuesday, and he helped to get that team rolling again as they are far behind in the playoff hunt. We'll see what happens with David Fletcher moving forward. For the Tampa Bay Rays, Yandy Diaz is considered day-to-day with right hamstring tightness and will be reevaluated on Tuesday after he exited a game against the Yankees on Monday in the bottom of the fifth. The Rays said Diaz felt some discomfort in his hamstring as he ran bases in the top of the third. Ryan Yarbrough, he became the 11th Rays pitcher to be placed on the IL when the club put him on the 10-day list along with Mike Zunino on Saturday. Yarbrough tossed 6 2/3 innings on Friday's 2-0 victory over the Marlins before exiting due to some left groin tightness he had been dealing with over the past couple of starts. Club is hopeful, though, that he will be able to return to the rotation when he's eligible on September 7th from his IL stint. Meanwhile, Mike Zunino was scratched from Friday's lineup with a left oblique strain he sustained during batting practice. Their catcher missed a significant amount of time last season with this injury, but they are hopeful that after this short stint on the IL that he will be shorter. It'll be a shorter stint on the IL this time, and he doesn't feel as severe as the 2019 season. Chaz Rowe, who was placed on the 10-day IL with right elbow soreness last week, was moved to the 45-day IL after feeling more elbow discomfort while throwing on flat ground. Tests did not reveal anything that would require surgery, but it looks like he's going to be shut down for the rest of the season. Justin Turner for the Dodgers had to exit in a 6-2 loss to the Rangers on Friday after sustaining a left hamstring injury while stealing second base. Manager Dave Roberts said Saturday that Turner has a low-grade strain and will be reevaluated on Tuesday after having a day off on Monday. For the Oakland Athletics, Marcus Semien was scratched from the starting lineup due to Saturday's game against the Astros at Minute Maid Park with left side soreness. Was scheduled to undergo an MRI. With Semien scratched from the lineup, Matt Chapman moved from third base to shortstop. One Gold Glover, he's just filling in at that spot. That's a good thing defensively to have. For his first start at short in his MLB career. Like I said, he's a good glove. He probably was not having a lot of issues with that move at all. Nathan Eovaldi was placed on the 10-day IL Saturday for the Boston Red Sox with a right calf strain. The Red Sox are hoping the right-hander would be able to take the mound Sunday against the Nationals, but his calf remained sore after a bullpen session Friday. For the San Francisco Giants, Trevor Cahill had to leave in a 5-2 win over the Diamondbacks in the fourth inning. Had some left hip discomfort, and this is something that is for sure scary when it comes to pitchers. If there's any issues with hips at all, you really want to proceed with caution. He entered Saturday's start with a 1.64 ERA over 11 innings this season in place of Jeff Samardzija, so we will have to be watching Cahill moving forward, especially with a Giants team that's been quite hot recently. Some other news across the MLB that doesn't have to do with just injuries. Well, the MLB postponed the Athletics Mariners season finale out of an abundance of caution. Announcement came after the MLB initially postponed games between the A's and Mariners on Tuesday and Wednesday in Seattle after a member of Oakland's organization tested positive for COVID-19 this past weekend. We're still having some of these positive tests coming out. Definitely has slowed down. The MLB has taken a great deal of caution with any of these positive tests, and you can see that here with this A's and Mariners season. Thursday's game has now been postponed as well. There has been no other positive tests among A's personnel since the initial positive test, and that's according to a statement from the MLB. And members of the team who were not identified as close contacts have been approved to travel back to Oakland. The 3-game series is expected to be made up on a September 14th doubleheader in Seattle, and with a single game that's been scheduled in Oakland on September 26th, now becoming a doubleheader as well. The first-place Athletics, who have not played since last Saturday, are scheduled to resume again on Friday when they get to have the San Diego Padres coming to town. That would be a very exciting series. Hopeful to see that one going. The Astros return against the Rangers after having some coronavirus postponements as well. They are scheduled for Tuesday night after their Sunday game against the Athletics was postponed because of a member of the Oakland organization testing positive, like we'd said previously. Status of Houston's series against the Rangers had been uncertain, as they had been awaiting a lot of these results for the Astros that they took on Sunday, but there is no details provided on whether the positive test from the A's came from a player, coach, or somebody else, so we're kind of missing a great deal of information. But it is looking like they are going to return with no major flags coming their way. And one other bit of news that I think is rather exciting. This is just a cool story, and I think this is going to be a great move by MLB. But the 2021 MLB draft will move to July and be held during all-star events, okay? So it's going to be from July 11th to 13th, held in Atlanta, and it's going to be a part of the All-Star Game festivities, according to a memo obtained by ESPN that MLB sent out to its clubs Monday about changes to the draft. The draft has been held in early to mid-June for a long time, so this is definitely a bit of a change, but I think bringing this to the All-Star activities, it's just a good move. It's a fun move. It's a good way to get a lot of these college players right in the action, and you'll probably know these names a little bit better if we're involving this around All-Star Weekend. I think it's just a smart play by the MLB. So just a massive amount of benefits that come from this. It allows the league to just market and promote young stars immediately, get them out there, and I'm all for it. I think this is just a great move. I know that I am someone who watches the MLB draft and keeps up on it a lot of years, but this is going to get a lot more of the casual fans, I think, interested, and they'll be seeing some prospects and names, and then guys that they can look forward to following to. So kudos to you, MLB. I think it's a smart move. So that's going to be it for news and noise around the league. giving you all your information on the 30 MLB teams and about, the MLB draft. So that's some exciting stuff. We need to start diving into trade season, talking about all these trades that happen. We have winners, we have losers. We're going to talk about some of that next. We're diving into those winners here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Well, I didn't quite expect a trade deadline like the one we got. There was a lot of questions coming into this year. Let's be honest with it. We have a shortened season. We have some salary cap implications. We have salaries that are guaranteed for some players way more than others. We have some teams that are really in the hunts for the playoffs and some that are not. The National League is crazy tight. The American League maybe not so much. So you had to see maybe there were going to be less sellers. Maybe there was going to be more buyers. It was hard to predict. But when it came down to it, we had a way more exciting trade deadline than I ever could imagine for. And big names even got moved. This is crazy. Nobody was expecting this stuff. And ultimately, it sure feels like we have a lot of different winners in this trade deadline for sure. So I want to talk about some teams that did great things, and it's very easy to start off with the team that did the best in this trade deadline in the San Diego Padres. I love this team at the start of the season. They were one of the teams that I thought could be incredibly exciting with their young talent, the players they have, the prospects coming. They started producing this season and playing very well. They know they are a serious team that could go far. So what did they do? They went and attacked one of their problems and got starting pitching. And not just any starting pitching. They went out and got an ace in Mike Clevenger. And I was just excited for this. It made me start deep diving into the Padres because I had the question is, have they had a pitcher that they considered this much of a top-end starting ace since like Jake Peavy? Now, there was other names in there that have had good season, like Aaron Harang had a good season for the Padres. Matt Latos had his moments for the Padres, but I'm talking top-end guy. We know who's starting every game for them to start a series if possible. Someone they're going to throw out there and feel pretty confident night in, night out. And it just feels like they don't have that on their roster. At least they haven't had it for a long time. So Clevenger was a very exciting add, especially when you consider a lot of the top pitching that will still be coming for the Padres. I am just incredibly excited about this. And then on top of that, we had some concerns about the back end of the bullpen for the Padres. Well, they kept going from there, and they went and got Trevor Rosenthal from the Kansas City Royals, who's having a great rebound season. And he's going to help shore things up, even though I think the team should start giving Drew Pomeranz more credit. I mean, he's been outstanding, great guy at the end. I feel like we forget about him sometimes. They go and add a bat in Mitch Moreland from the Boston Red Sox. That's a great move. He's going to be able to play a little first base, a little DH for you. Solid play. And then they made some moves for some behind-the-plate action with Jason Castro and Austin Nola. How that's going to completely break down, hard to say right now. But their depth that they've added, they're all in. They're going for it. Now, I think that the Cleveland Indians walked away okay with the return for sure. And, I mean, their pitching we'll talk about in a little bit. But they also made all of these moves. And they didn't trade their 4 best prospects in their farm system. I'm just blown away at how great of a job that the Padres did. They're setting themselves up for this year. They're setting themselves up for moving forward. This team just got so much better at a questionable deadline. It is incredible. And you really just got to take your hat off and just applaud because AJ Preller, Padres general manager, amazing. Just absolutely amazing what he pulled off at this trade deadline. And now the Padres are going to be exciting. So hopefully we get to see Clevenger pretty soon, get to see some of these other pieces get in the lineup. I'm interested to see how much scarier this team gets. They may not catch the Dodgers just because of how good the Dodgers really are, but when it comes to a series now in the postseason, if they run into each other, it's going to make it exciting. I'm excited for this team. Another team that I think is a big winner coming out of this is the Philadelphia Phillies. Turning things around, this team they've been getting a lot better as of recent. That offense, we knew all the names on that team. We thought of them as a potential team in the National League East that could make some noise. And they knew what their weakness was coming into this trade deadline. I mean, I think everybody does. The MLB's worst bullpen. Their ERA was at a 6.73. So what did they do? They went out and they got themselves a ton of bullpen arms. That is the way to try to fix some issues. Their biggest one, at least made more recently, was getting David Phelps from the Milwaukee Brewers, who's been having some great outings for the Brewers because that bullpen has been awesome for them this year. If there's a strength for the Brewers, it has been their bullpen. So getting one of those arms out of there has been great. Also, I mean, they've added throughout Brandon Workman, Heath Hembree, and David Hale. Bunch of options now at the end of the games as they keep fighting for a playoff berth. One of the best things you can do with these trade deadlines, you know your weaknesses, go and try to fix your weaknesses. And that's what the Phillies did, and that's why I'm in love with their trade deadline. Go get better in the best way that you possibly can, and they were a team that absolutely did that. Another team that went and attacked one of their weaknesses and was very interesting to see and also made just a great move because of the situation would be the Cincinnati Reds. Going out getting Brian Goodwin. All right, so Goodwin is a great addition to a team that's been ranked in the bottom third and on base plus slugging. And he would have not been available for this team at all if it hadn't been for the the Angels bringing up Joe Adell. If Joe Adell was still in the minors, Brian Goodwin would not be available. They just had too many options in the outfield for the Angels, so they had to move somebody. Okay. And after that, the Reds may not have thought there's much more to do, but then they go in and we grab Archie Bradley from the Diamondbacks, a team that had to sell. They're just kind of far back. It's hard to see them making the climb all the way to get one of those playoff spots. Bradley, 28, averaging 10.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. He is an upgrade to that bullpen. The bullpen has been struggling as well. When you go and attack your weaknesses at the trade deadline, it's going to be great things for you. So, love what the Cincinnati Reds have done. That was a great addition for the team as well. Another team that I love seeing what they did, the Toronto Blue Jays, made just a collection of moves that just make sense for this team. They go and get Jonathan Villar from Miami. He's a great plug-and-play player. He's going to be able to fill a lot of gaps. He can play shortstop for now until Bichette comes back. You can move him around the infield. You can play him in the outfield. He's just a great plug-in player that they're going to be able to use all over the place. That's awesome. They get Tejan Walker to come in and have as a starter. Ross Stripling was a nice move, an upside move, trying to get themselves some good starters. Robbie Ray is another move that I was interested to see if he can come in and give something for the Blue Jays. I mean, just strong upside moves. They may not make the playoffs this year. They may not, but they're on the right side of things right now, making moves, winning games. If they can come back healthy, they're going to only be better. I love that they were going for depth and just trying to strengthen things up because you never know if 3 teams is going to make it from one division in this new playoff format. And the Blue Jays are making that push. why not with a young, exciting team? I think that's the move to make for sure. Another team that I thought had an interesting move is going to be the Miami Marlins with the addition of Starling Marte. This is probably one of the better players to make the move over this trade deadline coming from the Diamondbacks. Again, the Diamondbacks were looking to sell, doing a lot of great things there, trying to, make up for a missed season, I guess, potentially, as their offense was pretty good, but the pitching hasn't been there. This overachieving team in Miami, they've been fun to watch. They've been doing some great things. Picks up a player in Marte who's got an 827 OPS, and that would be the best on the club right now in Miami. In the middle of the order, he's going to be great. That's something that the Marlins just seem to be lacking, is that potent offensive player there. It feels like his option might not have been picked up by the Diamondbacks, so the Marlins might consider doing that instead. So I like the change that they were making. And Jonathan Villar was the guy that exited out for Miami, but I think they'll be okay with that move overall. I like the risk that the Marlins are taking to try to go get a bigger name, better player. So they were a little bit of those buyers and sellers. It's interesting to see because, like I said, it was a crazy deadline. We didn't quite know. Now, we need to talk about this Indians team as well, as many people are questioning the moving of Mike Clevinger, and understandably so. If there's one thing we know about Clevinger, he's a great, great, great pitcher. There's another thing we know is there is a great deal of club control in which we have moving forward. But the Indians have just an absurd amount of depth when it comes to their starting rotation. So 7 guys have started the season this game for the Indians. We take away Clevinger, 6. Here are the ERAs of the 6 guys that have started for the Indians. Shane Bieber at 1.35 ERA, Savali 3.72, Carrasco 3.75, Plessic, who is just coming back as well after he had been away from the team for breaking some coronavirus protocols, 1.29. McKenzie 2.70, a guy that they are trying to get into the lineup now, just getting brought up. So that's another young, exciting arm to help fill that gap. And then Pluko 5.57, rounding it up, but that's the 6th guy. They have 5 quality starters. 4 guys with an ERA under 4. Sorry, 5 guys with an ERA under 4. They had an abundance of pitchers, and they gave up one of their top guys. Yeah, but they can fill the gap very easily, and they had a bigger problem in their lack of offense. So I love that the MLB.com had it written down. Trust the Indians, trust the process. That's the bottom line. They took a chance. It looks more like leaning that the Padres won this trade after the deadline. But there is a lot here for the Indians going forward. We can evaluate Arias and Cantillo moving forward. But for 2020, they also get a guy in Josh Naylor who's going to come in, be some little power for the Indians that they need because their offense has just been awful so far this year. So anything that they can help to boost their offense is going to be much needed. And they have the pitching, like I said, to win the American League. They can make the playoffs. If there is one thing we know for sure, if you have pitching, once it comes to the postseason, a lot of crazy things can happen. Don't forget what the Washington Nationals did last year. They got into the postseason even though that their record throughout most of the year was trouble. They got in at the end of the year, won a wild card game, and rode some strong starting pitching for quite some time. Did they have a few offensive players that great? Yeah, they did. They did. But their pitching was the key to getting out of there. And that's something that the Indians can rely on and take a deep run with. And I think that's very much a possibility. Another team that's at least interesting a little bit, the Chicago Cubs. I like the fact that they tried to beef up that bullpen. They need the help there. They don't have a lot of money space, a lot of ability to do much that it was crazy. But they went out and they got some players that's going to help them depth-wise. Jose Martinez is a guy that's going to play matchups-wise, get some at-bats. Cameron Maybin was a good addition to your defense, and he will play some innings as well. Grabbing 2 left-handers to put in your bullpen is what David Ross needed. More options for the end of games because their questionable part of their roster really is the bullpen. Craig Kimbrell isn't what he used to be. It's hard to rely on him. It might be a matchup game for the Cubs moving forward instead of a true shutdown closer, and that's okay. We're starting to see a lot more teams do that. They mainly because of injuries and other issues trying to find the correct guy. But it's interesting enough that they went and made the move. Try to fix up their weakness. That's how you play the trade deadline. So that's going to be a look at some trade winners from our crazy, crazy trade deadline. But when there are winners, that means there also are losers. And we're going to have to be talking about that next after a quick commercial break on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Has to be said, when it comes to winners, you're going to have losers. And this trade deadline, I didn't know what to expect. I have to be honest. It felt like it was going to be quiet. It felt like there was going to be a boring trade deadline, that not much was going to happen, period. And that makes it really hard to have a lot of winners and losers other than outside of a couple of moves that might have shored up a bullpen, put some depth in some positions. We didn't expect many big things to happen. But we couldn't have been further from the truth. As that deadline approached, a lot of moves were coming out of nowhere. And so we're going to end up having some teams that I'm sure are just kicking themselves as this deadline is passed. And I know that I have some for sure that I left Monday feeling, what were you doing? What you had an opportunity. You have to look at what your team is. You have to look at how other teams in your division are, what they're doing, and also what's been up with your team. Like what are you doing just sitting by, letting this season pass by? So I have 5 teams that I call trade losers, and I don't really have them on here as trade losers in the sense that they have gotten fleeced in a trade. It was really hard to pick many teams that got absolutely destroyed by another team when it comes to trades. But I have 5, we're going to put it 5/6, that didn't make moves. And I'm questioning their decision-making in this one. And the first one to me is the Texas Rangers. And it just comes down to understanding timing. Know when it is for you to sell. Now, I'm sure the Rangers thought coming into this season, their pitching was going to be really good. And that's about it. You just didn't have the offense there at all to make much happen. So we look at this team, and I'm sure they're sitting here wondering, why didn't they sell on Mike Minor last year? You move him to the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's are making a complete move in which they think that a better team around Minor, they're going to be able to revive him this year after he had a phenomenal 2019 season. So you missed the opportunity to sell high on him last year. That hurts. But now we have a situation where you can kind of fix that mistake. You have Lance Lynn pitching as one of the best guys in the bigs this season, and you didn't move him. Now you have him for one more season. You can probably move him next year, but losing that year of control on a pretty nice salary, you weren't selling him at his highest value, and you don't know if he's going to be as good next year. So I really sit here scratching my head on this one. And then on top of that, we hear all of this noise around Joey Gallo being involved in discussions. That's a talented, good player that's going to bring back some prospects. Instead, we see absolutely nothing happen for the Rangers outside of selling Minor. And they made no move. No move. They didn't get any better. They didn't really get a haul of prospects. And so then you look at next season and you go, what's going to change? The Oakland A's are still going to be good. The Astros are still going to be good. The Mariners are going to have some young guys. They might be getting better. And if the Angels go out and try to fix their pitching, their offense is going to be better than yours. So it's just a stagnant place, it feels like Texas was. And I'm just dumbfounded that they didn't move their most important guy to move to get the best value in Lance Lynn. And I just, you wonder what was going on in that front office. They had to have been asking for a boatload, and I think a lot of teams probably just got scared away at the asking price and just walked away because they didn't want to pay it. But if we learned anything, I mean, teams were willing to make offers. This trade deadline wasn't a fluke. It could have gotten done. So surprise with the Texas Rangers. That's why I have them kind of top of my list as a trade loser. Another team that I have, and it's hard again to put loser. Like you almost want to say just didn't take advantage. I have the Yankees written here because this is a team that just needs some juice. Now I know this Yankees team has had injuries that has really slowed them. I understand that. When healthy, one of the most talented teams in the MLB. And that's what it looks like they're doing. They're relying on their health to come back. And if it does, they may be just fine. And we'll look at this and say, okay, whatever. The trade deadline meant nothing. But realistically, with all these injury problems and them looking like they're going to carry on throughout the season, in their last 23 games, the New York Yankees are 11-12. They got absolutely manhandled by the Tampa Bay Rays, who have taken a lead in that AL East. And it definitely brings up some questions of concerns because if that health does not fix itself, because it's a short season, this isn't like a 162-game year when you can wait this stuff out and stay afloat. It's going to get here quicker to the postseason than you think, and then by then are we going to be sitting here questioning why they didn't do anything to add to this team. Now, there were rumors that they were sniffing around some trades. We heard Josh Hader to help their bullpen. We heard Lance Lynn. That ended up not happening. It just feels like these are not the Yankees of the old. They've built such a great team through so much power, so much offense. They also have some arms at the back of that bullpen. Again, if it's healthy, it's going to be good. But they had an opportunity to get better or add something to help them boost. And it just feels odd that they did nothing. Like I said, they're under 500 in their last 23 games. Would not have expected to say that even if I knew injuries were going to be a problem for the Yankees. We just thought they were that good. It feels like they need some juice. They need something to get them going. And let's just hope for the Yankees' sake that it's guys coming back from injuries will help fix that problem because it's looking a little tough right now for the Yankees moving forward. Another team that two teams. I'm going to put these two teams together, clump them together. In the sense that I expected something, and I'm really surprised we got nothing. The Minnesota Twins and the Chicago White Sox are two amazing offenses. They are high up there in the AL Central. The White Sox are winning the AL Central. The Twins are 2.5 behind. There's a good chance that all three of these teams, including Cleveland, they can make the playoffs. But it's going to be a fight in this AL Central when it comes to seeding. Cleveland got rid of one of their best pitchers. They have other pitchers there, but they made a move and they got a little bit of hitting back. They tried to boost, but yet we got nothing from Minnesota and the White Sox. Now, the White Sox, when you look at that roster and break it down, a lot of young talent, a lot of offense. They're going to be able to do great things at that point. But their starting pitching scares me so much when it comes to a series that if they're not able to slow down the team they are playing against, we're going to have to sit here and start talking about some major changes that need to come. Some major, major changes. We have a guy in Lucas Giolito who just had his no-hitter. That was exciting. 3.14 ERA. He's been all right. Dallas Keuchel, 2.70, but we know that he's not a strikeout guy. In 43 innings pitched, he's got 26 strikeouts. He's a guy that hopes to get you out in his other ways. And I'm just nervous behind those guys. Gio Gonzalez just had some issues with injuries. And then they have one other guy that has over 30 innings pitched this year in Dylan Cease, who's been all right. He's been okay. But it doesn't feel like they have enough. Their starting pitching is going to be the thing that holds them back if there's anything. Their offense is going to be great, and we could sit here and go, they're a very good team. We need to just let them go and be what they are. But I'm scared about them in a 3-game series, a 7-game series, 5-game series, whatever, if they cannot slow down another playoff offense. The Minnesota Twins, on the other hand, their offense is going to get better. They're bringing guys back from injury. That is not a weakness. If anything, they have some prospects, and we're waiting for a time where we can start calling all of these guys up. But helping that back end of that bullpen would have been nice. Even if they wanted to go for a starter, they could be okay with that. They have two starters who've been great for them in Dobnak and Kenta Maeda. But getting a third would not have been a bad decision. Getting someone to help at the back end of that bullpen, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, they have some players coming back, and Byron Buxton. Michael Pineda is coming. Maybe they'll be okay. Maybe that's their trade deadline. That's their acquisition to help them push forward. But it's a little disappointing in a sense when it's such a battle that between these three teams, it feels like they really didn't make any moves to go anywhere. They're just like, no, we think our teams are good enough. We're going to go ahead. We're going to push forward with what we got. We'll see how it pays out. It's an interesting decision, especially in such a heated race. My next team that I have was probably one of my biggest shocks that I thought they were going to make a splash to help out their pitching. The Atlanta Braves have had probably the biggest struggle out of any team in the majors in fielding the starting pitching rotation of a winner of a division going in as a strong playoff team. Now, we have to talk about how they have a great top-end guy in Max Fried. Good start. They just called up prospect Ian Anderson, who was good in his first start, and he might end up being a great player for them moving forward. But with all the battles and injuries, having guys designated for assignment, people that have opted out on this season, I would have thought that the Braves would have been the team going hard after some sort of starter to change the tide a little bit. Now, they went and got Tommy Malone from the Baltimore Orioles. That's the one move. It just feels like it's lacking. We will see how they go. I'm kind of hoping that Ian Anderson ends up being a lot better if I was a Braves fan. It feels like it's the belief in the system, but I'm scared about the teams that are coming behind you. I'm scared about the Phillies a little bit. Do the Marlins continue to succeed? It's a tough spot that Atlanta is in because you don't want to oversell as well when you are the team that's leading. You have been the most consistent, and you've also had some injury issues. I mean, when Ronald Acuna will come back and be healthy fully, that's a big part of your team, a big part of your offense. So a little disappointment as well. I mean, like there's a trend here. The Rangers were a weird one in the sense that they should have known when to sell, but then the Yankees, Twins, White Sox, Braves, you know what you had for some issues. You know that you're in this thing. You know you can make a run. It just feels weird that you didn't take some sort of move to try to up your team. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that whole situation. And then the last one that I have, and because this one just hits a little closer to home, I'm very curious as why the Milwaukee Brewers potentially did nothing. Now, they have a great bullpen. Hader was being talked about. They traded away David Phelps to the Phillies to get back some pitching prospects. They're entering Monday just 1.5 games back out of the playoff spot. That's what it was going into Monday, which is unbelievable. It's hard to believe that they are that close. Christian Yelich, Ryan Braun, Eric Sogard, Omar Narvaez, Justice Smoke are all hitting under 200. Out of the Brewers' 9 players with the most plate appearances, only Orlando Arcia is hitting above 232. This is a team that the farm system's down, so it makes it hard to buy, but this offense almost could have used anyone. Anyone, because they are struggling that much to get any type of offensive going. They feel like they're backed into a corner because they don't have any decisions. I mean, they called Jace Peterson away from their alternate site recently, and he's been getting a lot of playing time. Just because they're trying to find anything to get going. Jed Jerko was actually showing some little bright spots for him, but he had to just leave. A team dealing with some sort of family issue. We don't know the full details, but there's something going on, and you hope that comes back and that there's no serious issues. It's scary for this team if they want to make the playoff push because there's so many teams that in the National League have a chance to make the playoffs still. They are not out of it. But they really are lacking any type of offense to get anywhere at this point. So that's another team. And just one more teaser that I was interested in watching, and I don't really blame them for not making a move. I was just curious to watch. I was interested to see what the Washington Nationals were thinking. They have a lot of guys they could have traded away, some veterans. Estrudel Cabrera, Kurt Suzuki, Howie Kendrick being a few of them. But when you're a team that just won a World Series, you don't necessarily have to think of a rebuild right away. They've battled so many injuries, so many problems. I mean, Strasburg hasn't been there full time. They haven't had Scherzer there full time. It was interesting to think about them trading Scherzer. I saw some reports about that, just thinking about it, considering that his contract is coming up to an end eventually here, but that's just a lot of money to take on. They really are in a good spot where they didn't have to make any quick decisions. So no problems with what they did, but I definitely thought they were going to be a team that thought about it going forward because, like I said, 2021, he has base salary of $27 million. Then he's an unrestricted free agent at $37. It would have been an interesting discussion coming off of how great he's been for the Nationals and how big he was in that World Series. It would have seemed like kind of a slate to just trade him, but it was going to be worth the conversation with one more year of control. But the Nationals are probably thinking that, hey, we're not out of it yet, but even if we are, we're not going to make any crazy moves because next year we're going to come back. We're going to hopefully be healthier and good to go. So I don't knock them at all for not making any major decisions. I had my eye on it. I was wondering where they were going to go. So that's going to be our list of, again, I don't like saying trade losers. Let's just say teams that didn't take advantage, that didn't better themselves, because it's hard sometimes to make these moves knowing that you're giving up farm players. It's just some teams we can sit back and scratch our heads a little bit and wonder why they didn't make a move. Unless if you're the Texas Rangers, I really don't understand why you didn't sell, period. But that's our lone team that I'm just very, very confused about. So that's going to be it for this segment here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, talking about our trade losers. We're going to come back here after a short commercial break, and we need to dive into the playoffs as of today. So where would they be? It's very interesting considering we talked about this last week. A lot of things have changed. So stick around here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast to get all your information on the playoffs, potentially.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
We have to start talking about this. The playoffs are only a few weeks away. It's right around the corner. In less than 4 weeks, the regular season will be over. And it's hard to believe that that is coming as we're just hitting September here. We didn't know a season might be happening, but it's actually time to seriously think about the playoffs. We talked last week about what the playoff matchups would be if the season had ended that day. I want to continue the conversation because I was surprised to open up and look how much change we actually saw. It was unbelievable because in just a week's time, we moved basically everyone in the American League. We jumped in and out teams in the National League. We had teams that dropped from the number 1 spot all the way down, number 2 spot, all the way down to the number 7 spot in the American League. There was this much movement that happened in just a week's time. So I wanted to take a look at these playoff matchups again, what they would be like. It's just some new conversations, some new teams to get us excited about. And in the National League, when there's going to be so much movement in particular, it's interesting to talk about a lot of these teams because some of them didn't get mentioned really at all. So we're going to take a dive starting with the American League. This is the 8 teams that feel a little more set right now. I don't want to say set in stone because definitely a lot can happen as the season is going on. But there wasn't as much in and out in the American League as there was just movement between the 8 spots. So giving you that reminder again, the top 3 seeds, 1 through 3, is the division winners. East, Central, and West. And then in order of record, so best record will get the 1 seed, second best, second, third. Then the next 3 seeds, 4 through 6, will go to the 3 teams that finish in second place in order of that record. It does not matter if a team finishes third in another division and has a better record than one of the second places. Doesn't matter. Second place in division gets you 4 through 6 automatically. Final 2 seeds then go to the 2 teams with the next best records, regardless of division or division standing. It's just the best record. So we could see a team that finishes 4th in the NL East, NL West, whatever, a team that finishes 4th actually make the playoffs and be considered one of our wild card teams. So a lot of craziness could happen there. When we look at our American League, the number 1 seed right now, one of the hotter teams in baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays, they have not lost since we talked about this last week. They went on a hot stretch, and a big part of it is because their pitching was great. They are cruising what looks like to an AL East win. They have just been dominant when it comes to performance. And if the playoffs were to start today, they would be seeing the Toronto Blue Jays. So the Blue Jays have not moved from that 8 spot, even though they have been pretty darn great, 6-4 in their last 10. Tampa Bay Rays on that 6-game win streak. This one is fun in the sense that you're bringing in an American League East battle right away. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays are considered almost a lock to make the playoffs at 99.9%, so it's looking like they're going to make it. And the Blue Jays are actually considered a pretty high percentage as well at 79 right now with their 18-15 record, so that's pretty great for them. I love the idea of a team that's just been steady, consistent all year against a team that's getting hot coming in. I'm not calling any type of upset here, but you like it when you see a surging team come into the playoffs and actually has to play someone tough right away. That's something we could see with this Blue Jays team. Tampa Bay Rays have been hot as well. It would just be a fun matchup, and I would get behind the idea of these great Tampa Bay Rays starters against these young Toronto Blue Jays hitters. That storyline right there would be one that excites me and would be definitely a lot of fun. If we got to see Biggio and Bichette and Guerrero and all of these guys going up against the Rays, that just screams to be a lot of fun if this team is healthy. So hoping like a scenario like this, I would be down for it. I think it would be great. This next series we would have, the number 2, the Oakland A's. They were our last week number 1. Would be facing the Minnesota Twins, who were last week our number 2, dropped all the way to 7. So the top 2 seeds would end up facing each other in the first round this week. And that's how quickly things can turn in this season. It really is incredible. Now, the Astros are starting to get a little bit closer in the AL West with Oakland, 2.5 games back. And that's what's going to make this thing interesting. Oakland's got to pick it up a little bit. So like that trade for Mike Minor, I'm sure is a big move for them, hoping that they're going to help out their pitching and things are going to get going for them. While the Twins are actually in the middle of a scrum for the AL Central as well. We'll see where they even settle up in this. Right now, 3rd, but they could be 2nd and then get one of those 4 through 6 spots. This feels like 2 teams that are definitely going to move at some point. And it makes it very interesting because as they drop all the way to 7, the Twins could still fight their way up and be a top 3 seed. We'll see how this one goes forward. It's really hard to predict this. This is 2 smaller market teams. Would be fun to see. A lot of offense for the Twins, a lot of great consistent plays from the A's. I really am just hoping that this Twins team comes into the playoffs healthy and would love to see them basically against anybody. Our next series is the White Sox and the Yankees. Last week, the White Sox were 7, the Yankees were 3, but in this scenario, the White Sox would actually be the home team on top in this division if we don't go to like a bubble setting for the playoffs. The White Sox are looking to be more serious contenders. Their offense is awesome. I stated my concerns with their pitching by not making trades before. This has the potential to be one of the best offensive series we could see, alternatives in this playoffs. Yankees, White Sox, if the Yankees come in healthy, the amount of home runs, the amount of offense would be so much fun to get behind and to watch. And something to point out here is that the Yankees barely get this because they actually have the same record as the Astros. But Houston has a better intra-division record, so that gives them the higher seed. So this is actually very, very close, and there will be a lot more movement in this next week if we look at this again. So I would much rather see White Sox Yankees than White Sox Astros just because of the amount of offense between these 2 teams, but either one can't be too picky. So that leads us to our last series of the Cleveland Indians versus the Houston Astros. Pitching versus a great offensive team in Houston. The last time the Indians made the postseason in 2018, they ran into a historically great Astros team, and they were swept. This time it would be very different. No Mike Clevenger, but the Indians are still right there in the thick of the AL Central, still right there with some great pitching. It has the chance to be a very, very good series. But again, the Houston Astros are starting to make some movement in the AL West, so it makes you wonder if they would have enough time and be able to climb and maybe dethrone the Athletics, and then we wouldn't be talking about them in this 5 seed as well. So outside of those 8 teams, Tampa Bay, New York, Toronto, Chicago White Sox, Cleveland Indians, Minnesota Twins, Oakland A's, Houston Astros, we really don't see a lot of others in the playoff hunt. Of those 8, 7 of them are considered about 95% or higher chances of making it. Only exception being the Blue Jays at 79. Our next closest is the Detroit Tigers at 20%, and that's at a 500 record. So the American League is just kind of really loaded. But they're not out of it. They're not out of it. You can still count on the Twins. The problem that they have is they're in a division where 3 teams are in a just race to the finish. So Tigers might just happen to get in the way, unfortunately, of that. It's looking like this is going to be our 8, but the movement's going to change around. So that's kind of the story of the American League right now. The National League is on the opposite side of the spectrum, as we have very few teams that are considered out of it. The Braves are at 95% right now. Phillies 65. New York Mets 57. Cubs 96. Cardinals 58. Brewers 52. Reds are sitting around 50. The Dodgers are considered 100% right now. The Padres 97. Rockies 41. The percentages are all a lot higher. Even some of these teams, interestingly enough, that are sitting okay, their percentages aren't as high. Like the Marlins. They're second in the NL East. They would make the playoffs if it ended today. They are considered a 22% chance of making it. The Phillies and Mets both considered a higher chance. So, interesting situation there. But how it would break down if it ended today, well, the Dodgers still number 1. Nothing changes there. The Rockies would be number 8 after being number 7 last week. Interesting to look at considering the fact that our 8 last week drops out. So this would be a new team in. We will have to see if they can hold on. The Rockies have been just kind of slowly falling down out of this playoff picture. It would be fun to see a matchup of Dodgers-Rockies. I believe it was Dodgers-Giants last week. Still staying with that NL West trend. Dodgers are 5 games up on the next best team in the National League. It feels like they're going to lock this up. They are looking like one of the best teams we've ever seen. Now, this Rockies team is just going to have to try to hold on with the pitching they have, with the hitting they have. They did make a nice move in getting Kevin Pillar to help their team out a little bit from Boston. They got Michael Givens from Baltimore to help out that bullpen a little bit. So they're trying to hold on to some playoff position, but it will be interesting to see where they go moving forward. There's a lot of good teams in the National League that could fight their way in, and a lot of teams in just the National League West. So that's just going to make the schedule even tougher for the Rockies. The 2-7 matchup would be the Atlanta Braves right now and the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies were not in this last week. And it makes it confusing because there's a lot of tiebreakers all over the place in the National League. So it makes it tough, but the Phillies would take this spot. The Braves, Phillies, good. A nice NL East matchup. Loving these division matchups. That's the one thing about this 8-team format that actually is kind of exciting. This is first-round potential rivalries that would be a lot of fun. And this is one for sure that I would be watching because the Braves might just have to hold the Phillies off. And the Phillies might surge in. And it might just because of the slow start for the Phillies that we might actually see this being a pretty close matchup for 2-7, which makes that exciting. We'll see what happens with the Phillies bullpen moving forward, as they made some moves to help that out, but it's been very, very bad. If they fix that situation, they might even climb higher than 7. So a team definitely to watch, and you hope the Braves get back healthy. You hope their starting pitching gets figured out, and that they can hold on for their NL East as well. The next series, Chicago Cubs, Miami Marlins, makes you think of 2003 NLCS right away. The Alex Gonzalez game, as it's been called, not the Steve Bartman game. This is the matchup I think of right away. The Cubs team is really good. It looks like they're going to win the NL Central, unless if the Cardinals go on a hot stretch and the Cubs struggle back a little bit. It feels like they're going to get one of these top 3 seeds. Now, this Miami Marlins team like I'd stated before, their playoff probability percentages are low. But that doesn't mean they can't hold on. They went and made a move, getting Marte from the Diamondbacks, Starlin Marte, to help out their offense. Their depth was at some starting pitching spots. They had some names there, some guys they feel confident in. So maybe their offense gets a little boost forward, things work out for them. I think this would be a fun storyline just because of the fact that the Marlins making the playoffs after having to put together a makeshift team early in the year, going through all the coronavirus issues. I would love to see this team get in. We'll see if they can hold on. They got the Phillies there. They got the Mets there. And like we said before, the Nationals aren't 100% out of this thing. Looking like they might be at the bottom right now, but it's going to be a fight in the National League East to the end. And our last series in the National League would be the San Diego Padres versus the St. Louis Cardinals. This 4-5 matchup, and it's the same thing in the American League, is just going to be a tough start for whoever it is. It's going to be two good teams. A team that finished second in the division, I find it hard to believe that it would be someone other than the Padres, considering how good they've been. They're going to be finishing in the second, most likely behind the Dodgers. They'd have to have a little fall off at some point, but with all the acquisitions they made to bump up their team, it feels like they're going to hold into that spot. And if you're another team in the National League, you're going to make the playoffs, you almost want to avoid that 5 seed. You don't want to see them in that first round matchup. But right now, the Cardinals get that draw. They would make it. They have some baseball games that need to be made up. They're for sure a team that's going to be interesting in this next month because they're going to have so many games, so much activity squeezed into a short amount of time. We'll see how they do with all that. It's going to be testing for a team for sure. But they've been getting some great performances. Paul Goldschmidt has been great for them. We'll see what happens with the Cardinals. So that right now would be our 8 teams in the National League and the American League. There's going to be some movement. There's going to be quite a bit of movement before this regular season ends, and I'm excited to watch it. Outside of the Dodgers, there's not many seeds that look like they're going to be pretty close to locked up. I mean, and that's even saying that the Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, they moved from 4-1 this last week. Will that stay the case? One bad week, you never know what's going to happen. It changes quick in the MLB. So that's going to be it here for me on the GSMC Baseball Podcast and the GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you again for listening. It means a great deal to me. Awesome if you guys could leave a positive review, any type of comment. Maybe you have other trade winners, trade losers that I didn't talk about. Maybe there's something you're looking forward to in the playoffs as it's coming around the corner. Leave a comment. Let me know. I'm looking forward to hear from all of you guys. So that's going to be it for me. We're going to head out. We got some baseball games we want to go watch tonight. So hope you have a great night. And once again, thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.